In this analysis video, we take a look at the swing of Rickie Fowler. Now, Rickie Fowler has made some pretty big swing changes under the tutelage of Butch. He's played really well the last couple years, and so it's no wonder that a lot of students have some questions about what swing changes he's made and why they've been so helpful. So in this video, we're going to take a look at the one major swing change that he has made with the help of Butch as well as his fitness trainer, but then we'll highlight a couple of the other things, such as how his swing is typically compared to both Sergio Garcia for this laydown move, as well as Rory McIlroy for his right leg straightening and almost reversed hip thrust. I'm going to help you understand that what he does is very different from those two golfers, as well as helping you understand how sequencing has played a big role in his improvement under Butch. Now, sequencing is one of those kind of catch-all buzzwords that we like to use to relate to how one body segment is interacting with another. So the big area where Rickie tended to struggle was in using the muscles between his rib cage and pelvis. So over here on the left is a close-up video from 2010, and then over here on the right is a close-up video from last fall. Now, we can see that the takeaway positions are very different. The forearm relationships are very different. We can also see that he's over on the right, Rickie has a little bit more muscle mass. He worked out pretty hard when he started working with Butch, and that can be contributing to what he's able to do with his core. Because here's what we want to see in transition. And this is the movement that I think a lot of golfers, amateur as well as some professionals, miss out on, and that is connecting the pelvis to the rib cage. So as we look through and as we scrub through back and forth in transition, what you'll see is that his pelvis is leaving behind his upper body. So if you look at kind of this area right in here, that's close to the bottom of his rib cage, even down there. That's close to the bottom of his rib cage and close to his lat muscle. So what you'll see is his pelvis rotates away from that part, and you'll see that there's not a ton of rotation happening. It's a little bit more of a side bend movement. So there is some rotation, but you'll see that the dominant movement is going to be more with that side bend, and it's not until he gets down to right around here that his rib cage really starts rotating. Where in his new version, what you'll see is his pelvis is still going to start a little bit before his lower body, which it's good for it to start before the upper body, for the lower body to start before the upper body. But you want to make sure that that rotational movement of the lower body is transferred or connected to the rib cage. So what you'll see in the more recent swings is you'll see that this part of his rib cage is rotating much sooner than where he was back here 6 years ago. Again, back 6 years ago, he had a little bit more of a side bend movement, where now he's having more of that rotational sling activated. Now that rotational sling is going to help steepen the path of the club. So yes, his arms are in a better position at the top of the swing, but the relationship between the arms and the upper body looks even better during the downswing because he has included more of this upper body rotation. If he didn't rotate his body, then the side bend movement that you would tend to see is going to rely on more of an arm pull as a power source, where over here on the right, he's going to be using a little bit more of his total body to speed up the club head. As a result of having that body power that downswing, now we're going to see that his arms are able to work a little bit more left, and he's able to have more body rotation through the shot. Where over here on the left, he's got less of the body rotation, so his hands work a little bit more out to the right through the release. One key takeaway for you is if you look at a down the line video, looking at where your upper body is and looking at where your arms are, those are the two factors that are going to relate to where your hands are going to move through the ball. Are they going to move out towards the target line, or are they going to move left following your body? If they move left and the arms are straightening, then the only thing that's going to be pulling them left will be body rotation of the rib cage. Golfers are always compared to each other, and one of the golfers who Rickie is frequently compared to is Sergio, especially in transition. Now, probably less so with his more modern move that doesn't have quite as much of the arm drop. But what you'll see is that his movement in transition is actually quite different from Sergio's. If we look at the body movement of Sergio, you'll see that if we had a kind of imaginary wall right here, you'll see that his upper body and his head are working down this way, and then he's having a lot of shallowing movement with the lead forearm. So as we go through transition, you'll see that his upper body works down, his rib cage works down, and he creates all of his shallowing movement with what he's doing with his lead forearm and trail shoulder. Now, if we look at Rickie, if we draw that same line up against his forehead, what you'll see is that during transition, his shallowing movement is going to happen more from his upper body working away and from hand drop and creating depth, not so much from the arms shallowing. So while there is a significant plane shift, I think comparing him to Sergio is actually comparing drastically different movements, but similar flat shaft position. Since their transitions are different, you'll see that through the release, they have very different looking movements as well. You can see differences in the arm extension direction, you can see differences in the amount of rotation and side bend, and you can see pretty dramatic differences in the overall hand path. Now, the other golfer who Rickie is frequently compared to is Rory McIlroy, and the place where their comparison typically exists is in the straightening of that right leg and the little reverse hip movement during the release. So you will see that both have a pronounced straightening of the legs, and Rory does have the reverse hip movement, and so does Rickie. But I want to show you that there is a drastic difference in how they use their pelvis during the downswing. So as we go up to the top of the swing, I want you to key in on the amount of slide of the pelvis, and more importantly, the rate of slide of the pelvis. What we'll see with Rory over here on the left is that he's going to shift over onto that left side relatively early in the downswing, roughly by the time the hands are at about between shaft parallel and arm parallel. And then what you'll see is, because of the orientation of his pelvis being behind his foot, when he goes to push through his legs, it's going to cause his pelvis to brace, and it's going to cause his pelvis to elevate. Lovely looking pelvis movement when we look over here. Now, when we look at Rickie, he does create a lot of speed, so we know he's using his legs, but you'll see that his sway slide pattern is going to be very different from more of the classic looking swing of, say, an Adam Scott or a Rory McIlroy. What we'll see with Rickie is he's going to have some early hip slide, but then what you'll see is his hips continue to slide the rest of the downswing. So he doesn't move as far as early as someone like Rory McIlroy. And so because his pelvis is working more across his body or in the direction of the target, you'll see that as he approaches impact, his pelvis is more on top of his foot than, say, a Rory McIlroy. So as a result, he's going to have all of the bracing be vertical with his lower body, and then he's going to have to brace more with his rib cage and shoulders. He's not going to be able to brace with this whole sling the way that Rory McIlroy is demonstrating. So while it's tempting to compare similar looking shaft positions and group golfers that way, I like to look at the different movements of transition and release and build the categories of swings more around power sources and how you're controlling the path and face-to-path relationship. When you do it that way, what you'll see is that Rickie has a unique move that works great for him, and he has some really good pieces. You can see that he's done a lot of work both with his swing technique as well as in the gym in strengthening the connection between his pelvis and his rib cage, and that's resulted in some better play. So if you like the way we break these swings down and you'd like to have your swing broken down, or you'd like to have a certain golfer analyzed, please don't hesitate to contact us at golfsmartacademy.com.